Hey, eighth graders. So today we are going to be talking about the slope of a line. So yesterday, or on Monday, excuse me, we talked about linear equations and about how to graph linear equations, right? If you have y equals x plus 1, you can make your chart, plug in numbers for x, solve for y, and then have your x and y coordinates, and then graph your x and y coordinates, draw a line through all your points on the graph, and you have a line. A linear equation forms a line. Today we're going to be talking about the slope of the line. Now, think about it. Slope. Where else have you heard that word before? Slope. Maybe like a ski slope. What is a ski slope? It's like a down. It's like a hill, right? Kind of. Incline. It's an incline. So when we talk about the slope of a line is a ratio that is equal to the rise of the line over the run of the line. Don't worry, I am going to be sending you guys a Google document with all the notes that you'll need to transfer to your notebook. But the slope of the line is equal to the rise over the run. The rise of the line over the run of the line. The rise of the line over the run. Rise over run. Rise over run. What does this look like? Rise over run. Kind of looks like one coordinate in a graph, right? The slope, rise over run, is found by taking y point minus a y point over an x point minus an x point. It's found by taking two coordinates, subtracting their y's and subtracting their x's. Now you don't simplify this fraction, you keep it. So let's look at an example. The slope is rise over run. So if I was given a graph and I was given the coordinates 2, 3, and 4, 6. These are 2 points on a graph that I have, and I was asked to find the slope. First, remember x and y, right? So slope is found by taking y2 minus y1 and x2 minus x1. Doesn't matter really which one you do first. I would just to keep things simplified for you, whichever one you do first for y's, you have to do first for x's. So I would just do that one for 2's, do the first one for 1's, and then what do? Y2, so take 4 minus y1 is, or excuse me, I did x's. Y2 is 6 minus y1 is 3 over x2 is 4 minus x1 is 2. 6 minus 3, 4 minus 2. It would have been wrong if I did 6 minus 3 and then started with this x. You would have gotten the wrong slope. Remember, from the coordinate, whatever coordinate pair you start with for your y's, you need to start with that x. So you have the same, just like when you were solving and finding the ratios of the sides of a triangle, you kept the same side of the triangles and then the other sides of the triangles, right? Same triangle, same triangle. Similar with your slope. You need to keep them the same. And then you solve. So you get 3 over 2. So the slope of the line is 3 over 2, the slope of this line. So what does this mean? Between every single point on your line, you go up 3 and over 2. You rise 3 and you run 2. Up 3 over 2. Between every single point in your line, you go up 3 and over to the right 2. So what does this mean for what our graph would look like if we have a positive slope? If we have a positive slope, we know that your graph will look something like this. If you have a positive slope, you know that your excuse me, rises from left to right. So this is positive slope, where your line rises from left to right, which makes sense, right? If I picked like this point to that point, you're going up, which is going positive on the y-axis, and you're going to the right, which is positive on the x-axis. Now, if you have a negative slope, this is in my graph for a negative slope, it would look something like this. It would be rising right to left. Rising right to left. Because you can think about this one in two different ways. If you're looking at a point between here and a point between here. You rise positive, but you are running negative because you're going left on the x. Or you're going down, you're falling, the opposite of rising is falling, but you're running positive. So one of your terms is negative. You're either going down or you're going to the left. Down for x's, negative, or going to the left for x's, negative. So the rise and run, positive, one's negative. To get you a line that has a slope, negative. You're rising right to left, has a negative slope. So how can we find this on an actual line? Let's take a look, shall we? So let me look at let me see what we're doing here, huh? Okay, so let's say that we were given the point. Let's say that we were given the points -2, 3, and 3, 2. And we were told to find the slope. What do we do? y2, minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we need to decide which coordinate pair is going to be x2 and y2, and which coordinate pair is going to be x1 and y1. The way I usually do it is I usually pick the one with the bigger numbers to make y2 and x2 because I don't want to have to deal with negative numbers. It's a really helpful tip for you. Pick the ones with the bigger numbers so that you don't have to deal with negative numbers in your slope. That'll become a headache as we move on. So I'm going to choose this one to be my 2's because it has the bigger numbers. This one will be 1. So let's go y's and x's. Y's and x's define my slope. So x2 I said was 2 minus y1, which is 3, over x2, which is 3, minus x1, which is minus a negative 2. 2 minus 3 is a negative 1. 3 minus a negative 2 plus a positive is 5. Well, looks like I have to deal with negatives, which means I have a negative slope. I have a negative 1 over 5 as my slope, which means I go down 1 and to the right 5 between every single point. So, what is the graph of this equation of this slope? What would it look like? Would it go from left to right or right to left? It would go from right to left, correct? Because I'd go down 1 and over 5 between every point. What about another one? What if I was given the points? What if I was given the points -3, 1, and -5, -4, and I was asked to find the slope? let's see. At first glance, I see way too many negatives, but let's try the top one being my second equation and the bottom one being my first coordinate pair. So I'm going to take my y2, which is 1, minus my y1, so minus a negative 4, over my x2, which is negative 3, minus my x1, which is a minus a negative 5. Plus a positive gives me 5, plus a positive gives me 2. So the slope between these, I rise 5, and I go to the right 2. Between every single point on this line, I'm rising 5 and going to the right 2. So it has a positive slope, which means this line rises from left to right. From left to right. Now, we learned about two other lines in section 4.1. We learned about horizontal lines and we learned about vertical lines. Remember, horizontal lines, if we have something like y equals 2, remember y equals 2 is a horizontal line that will never, ever, ever cross the x-axis. This line will never cross the x-axis because it's a horizontal line. This line does have a slope. So if we think about this, we would take our y's over our x's. So let's do that's a point, and let's do that's a point. And we want to find the slope between these 2 points. Now this point would be 3, 2, and this point would be 1, 2, 1, 2. So we need to pick. I'm going to have this be my second one, this be my first ordered pair. And then we subtract, so I take my x's, 2 minus 2 over 3 minus 1. 0 over 2 is my slope. Now, in fractions, if you have 0 over a number, your answer, when you simplify it, is 0. The slope of a horizontal line is always 0. The slope of a horizontal line is always 0. What about my x's? What about my vertical line? Let's say I have x at 2. Remember, if you have x equals 2, you can graph this as a vertical line at your x point. It will never cross the y-axis. Remember that. This one will never cross the y-axis. So, to find it, I can pick some points. I'm going to pick this one, which would be 2, 1, and I'm going to pick this point, which would be 2, 1, 4. Okay, put some points on my line, and then I'm going to let's have this one be my second, and this one be my first ordered pair. So then I'm going to do y2 minus y1, which would be 4 minus 1, over 2 minus 2, which is 3 over 0. 3 over 0. Now, you cannot divide by 0. You cannot simplify this. 0 can never be on the bottom of a fraction. So, the slope of a vertical line is what we call undefined. Because 0 can never be on the bottom of a fraction, the slope of a vertical line we call undefined. So for your homework, what you'll be doing is you will be taking points that you have been given. You will be given points, and you will be finding the slope. You will be plugging them in. You'll be plugging in them to this equation, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, defining the rise and the run between points on a graph. That's what the slope is. The slope is the distance of rise over run between points on a graph. Slope, one thing to mention in your homework, which you'll see, slope is also written by the variable m. You'll see something like m equals, which is slope, to know. So in your Google Classroom, I will be putting a link with a Google Doc to have all of your vocabulary words that you need to be filling out in your notebook. As well as that, I will have your assignment for this day, what you're expected to do. You'll probably have a page in your workbook, and then I think I'll also have something for you to do on your Google Classroom so that I can see what you're doing for work. So have fun!